the Everything But Politics podcast.
What is up, friends, and happy Monday. Welcome back to the Everything But Politics podcast. Joining us today is Roach, also known to many as Reptastic Adventures. Al, thanks for making the time to join us here on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, so I know you recently mentioned that you were spending time here in Florida. How's your stay been so far?
No, it's been great. I mean, there are a couple of days of rain, but other than that, I mean, you can't beat escaping New Jersey and coming down to 80 degrees.
Well, and you said over DM you were here for spring training. What exactly were you doing?
Yeah, so I have friends that play, and they're down here, and I just kind of try and meet up with them. I'm all about trying to establish relationships. My main goal is to get some Major League Baseball players and work with them a little bit on hitting. Back in Jersey, I have a baseball academy, and I've trained hitters since when I was in minor league baseball, and down until I guess it was 2009, I started my business. I was signed with the Atlantic City Surf that year in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and the team ceased operations because of some issues with the city. But that at that point, it's just like, hey, I gotta focus on making more money. So I started just training players, and they just kept being fed to me. I ended up opening a baseball academy called We Drop Bombs, and that's in Medford. And I got a bunch of teams. Usually I have like anywhere from 9 to 10 or 11 teams for kids from 10 years old through 18. And we help train them, make them better hitters, and then also probably get on their high school team and get recruited to play in college. But over the years, I've trained over 6,000 hitters on a one-on-one basis, and there's not many people probably out there that can say they've done that many kids. So I've kind of through trial and error early on in my career with teaching kids, and where I'm at now. I mean, if I knew what I knew now when I was younger, I probably would have done a little bit better. But my main goal is, my main issue really was my health. Once I left college and I went into pro ball, my knees, shoulders, hands, it just kind of went down the tubes. So it was just a constant battle of fighting injuries. So I'm trying to just network, get some connections, and try and get some major league players. I mean, it's hard because you don't want to step on other people's toes. The hitting coaches, the hitting coordinators, but it's like, listen, I'm trying to just help. There's things that, people are learning every day in this industry, even with just technology. And, it's come a long way in the last, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially considering, you mentioned how it's evolved, technology, and, really track the swings and all that. But with, you being down here for spring training, what have you heard? What have you seen? Who can we expect this year to kind of emerge as one of the favorites to win the World Series?
Man, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to. I mean, I think the Phillies are a red hot team. It's just a matter of whether or not their bats are going to stay, active or go silent when they get to the playoffs. I mean, last year they were up 3-1 on the Diamondbacks. And they ended up losing 3 in a row and didn't go to the World Series, which they clearly should have done, but their bats went silent. So, I mean, it's not always the best team that wins. It's the hottest team that wins when it counts. So, you get into the playoffs, whatever the hottest team is at that time, whoever's swinging the bats. I mean, hitting's contagious. So you have one hitter get on base. The most important guy every game is the leadoff guy of every inning. So whatever inning you're in, the first guy, if he gets on, that really sets the tone. I mean, if he gets out, it's most cases it's an inning killer. So really, it's just that's what it comes down to is so whoever's the hottest team offensively, and as long as the pitchers continue to do what they've been doing all season to get there, they're probably in a good point to, or a good place to get to farther in the playoffs.
I've never heard that analogy that first the leadoff hitter really sets the tone.
Yeah,
I haven't played baseball in about geez, probably 8-9 years. I played all through till freshman year of high school, but that definitely is a good saying. You know, try to get the team riled up, get started off right.
Mm-hmm.
Stages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's like pitchers. A lot of times, first at bat, they want to the first hitter, first pitch, they want to get that strike right off the bat. It sometimes sets a tone for the at bat, whether or not you can, mess around with other pitches and as a pitcher's job is to always get hitters off balance. So when I teach hitting, the number one thing I focus on is balance, staying balanced before, during, and after contact, and also maximizing bat speed at the same time. And if you combine that with a good mental approach at the plate with, hey, what are you trying to do with the ball? What are you trying to do here? Which a lot of times, if you watch Major League Baseball, most swing and misses on fastballs, almost all of them are under the ball. And it's mind-boggling. If they would just change their approach, try to hit a ground ball up the middle, it would just iron itself out a little bit. Their batting average would probably go up higher.
Yeah, and Al, I played baseball all throughout high school, but tore my ACL in high school and kind of called it quits after that. It kind of seems like after all your injuries, you still are involved, but how did you kind of change your path and get into animals?
Well, my main life has been, I've grown up in the woods. So when I was 6 years old, my parents moved to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. So on the back of the property, there was snakes and lizards and turtles and, all kinds of fox, all kinds of wildlife that roamed around the property. So I kind of just started liking it, living in the woods. And then, over time, I started to accumulate. I bought a lot of turtles and tortoises and shit. Now I got peacocks. I have chickens. I have monitor lizards, rhino iguanas. And, obviously this stuff gets expensive. So electric bill alone is like $1,700-$1,800 a month, which is insane. With all the ponds and all the heat, and the lights and the electric. And so the main goal is to try not to lose money too much. So you try and breed them, and then you sell the offspring to pretty much pay for your expenses, just because I like being around them all the time. So then I started doing a lot of videos with different wildlife. And, my friend owns a zoo down in Miami called Zoological Wildlife Foundation. And they actually do wildlife encounters with different animals. So you can go down there and, I guess, I don't know what they charge, but it's like a certain amount for each encounter. And you can do like a sloth, or you can do like a capuchin monkey, or you can do an owl, or there's all kinds of animals there. And, it's a great place. And I'm friends with Mario and Maria, who are owners of the zoo. And I go there and I, kind of get to spend some time with them and with the animals. And I do videos with them. They're captive bred. When you're dealing with captive bred animals, they have a personality and they're accustomed to humans. But the number one thing I can't stress enough in this world is the survival of a species. The two most important factors in, a species survival are habitat protection and captive breeding programs and reassurance colonies. So they need reassurance colonies in captivity in case there's any kind of catastrophe, or because they get overhunted, or in certain countries there's animals that just get eaten. I know there's like the clouded leopard in Southeast Asia. I mean, they just shoot them because they are going into farms and eating their livestock and eating chickens and all this and that. So there's a lot of people that do it illegally as well. They go in and they hunt and they kill them, which is terrible. And I think, the reassurance colonies is just, it's a safety net. So with people like myself, I have a lot of different species of turtles and tortoises. And, my number one goal is to just breed as many as possible. And, there's a lot of different people there's some people that are in it for money. It's like, to me, it's not about that at all. I'm just a big animal lover, and I care a lot about the survival of them. And, I try and help animals let it cross on the road. Save numerous turtles, snakes, and all sorts of animals crossing the road, from getting hit by cars. So, it comes down to having a big heart and loving the animals, doing what's best for them. But there's one thing that really concerned me is that there's a lot of land development and there's a lot of habitat that's getting just plowed over, and they're just building more townhouses, more apartment complexes, and it's getting out of hand in certain states like South Carolina. So I'll give you an example. South Carolina, they allow that to happen. And in the process, they cover, places that had vernal pools where different species of frogs and turtles and stuff lived during certain times of the year. And they'll take down the trees and they'll put up, and believe it or not, then they'll come after the people in the animal industry that want to keep them and want to breed them and say, no, you can't have them. You can't keep them. And if you do, they're going to go after you and try and give you a ticket or fine or whatever. But at the same time, they're giving out permits to bury them pretty much alive or just destroy their habitat, and it's just messed up. So, the number one thing is habitat protection, and then the number two is have people breed them a lot. And then if you breed them a lot, the price and the value of them come down, and there's less desire for people to do anything with the wild ones, take them out of the wild and whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, that's my breakdown on animals conservation. I spent about 3 or 4 hours a day taking care of them, usually in the morning hours up until about 12:30. Then I have lunch, and then I pretty much go train ball players the rest of the day. So that's my baseball company is able to fund, more of the reptile stuff, and, but it still has to mean if you're selling baby, turtles or tortoise or whatever, you still have to have that as a business because you still have revenue coming in, whether or not that side of the business is making money or not. But, it's just a huge passion that I have.
It's a very unique passion.
Yeah.
There's something I'm curious, considering you're in Florida right now, who's watching the animals? Like, how do you travel, move around?
Yeah. So I got a guy that is, his name is Charlie. He's 22 and he's in college, taking college courses, and just kind of got some time. When you're in college, you have like 3 or 4 classes a semester, and class sometimes will start at 1:00. So he'll come over before it, and he'll do, a couple hours of work for me. I usually give him certain assignments that, just take a little bit off of my plate because I have a lot. So when I'm gone, he has, everything. So he's got to put in more time. He's there later at night. And, he knows he's been working under me, kind of just been around me and the animals for a while now. So he kind of picked up on everything and kind of knows what he's doing.
When people want to purchase, a turtle, tortoise, a monitor.
Yeah.
How do you like distribute them, whether outside of New Jersey, if someone in Washington wants one, how do you get it?
So basically there's always apps and there's online internet. I mean, back in the day it was mailing lists and it was crazy, like when I was a kid. But they have an app called Morph Market. I'm using this as an example. People can go on to the Morph Market app and just look up any kind of reptile, amphibian, and there's different categories, and then people have accounts, and everybody that has account there is, a certified vendor or seller. So you got to prove that you are driver's license and, answer all these questions, and they actually charge you a fee per year for what you want to do. So just to make sure the sellers are legit. So people can go on there, they can buy them. And then when they buy them, we package them up and we ship them next day air. So we'll drop it off, 2:30, 3:00 in the afternoon, and they'll have it the next morning by usually 10:00. And we put them in boxes that are insulated styrofoam. And, when it's cold out, we put heat packs in there. But reptiles can handle a lot of cold. They can't handle cold and wet. So, the fact that they stay dry in the box, in an insulated box, and, it's pretty safe. On the outside of the box, it's marked live animals. Please keep this side up. So the people that are handling the packages aren't just chucking them and throwing them around. They understand that they got to take them more serious. So
what kind of animals can you not ship that you got to go deliver it?
So obviously, well, I mean, when you're dealing with livestock with certain animals, but I mean, you could probably pretty much ship anything. I mean, whether it be a truck or by truck, or whether it be by, FedEx or, UPS, but I don't think you can do it with USPS. But there's many ways, and, you just got to go about packaging them differently. So you get like a big tortoise, let's say a tortoise is, 75 pounds, 80 pounds. Well, you got to put it in a crate and build a crate for it and then screw it down so it can't break out of the crate. And then generally, a lot of people that sell them they ship based on temperature. So no one's going to ship a tortoise in a big crate that has lots of air coming through. It's exposed to the elements. It's not in an insulated box in the middle of wintertime. They're gonna ship that during the warmer months where they don't have to worry about it. Or if it goes by truck, there's certain people that'll, drive stuff down to different places, but where they'll just come pick it up. But yeah, it's not easy when you're dealing with larger animals.
I'm sure.
In terms of people that purchase these animals, then, they get sick of them. They just release them into, wild in these invasive environments. I feel the best example of this is probably goldfish being like dumped into the pond and just causing havoc. When people do stuff like, letting these tortoises go in the Pine Barrens or an alligator in a New Jersey lake, like who's more who's it worse for, the ecosystem or those animals?
Probably if they're not native to that kind of habitat, I would say the animals. If they're basically found in a southern state where it's warmer, they're not used to those cold temperatures all the time. Obviously, that the animal will have a problem, and usually a lot of them die off. Like, for instance, if you let go, if somebody had a red-tailed boa and they let it go in New Jersey, it would pretty much die off in the winter when it's not trained and doesn't know how to survive in that cold of temperatures. Now, there are some species that can adapt to it. I mean, I've seen species that are in Florida. Like I keep some of the Florida species in New Jersey and I leave them outside year round. So it just depends on the species, but really it comes down to the animal is a concern, the health of the animal surviving, because in most cases, one or maybe even two is let go. It's not going to do anything. It's when multiple are let go in one location of both males and females where you can actually get established populations of different animals. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame. There's some invasive species in that, the government got involved in releasing, and as well as, private keepers, they've released them. And some of them were released to do, to try and help something else that was struggling, but then it ended up causing another problem. So, there's a lot of different avenues, the different ways you can look at it. But my number one thing is always the survival of every animal. I want every animal to be happy. I want every animal to live. I mean, obviously, I'm not a vegetarian, but I still care about, all the other animals. And, I have trouble feeding. There's people out there that feed live animals to reptiles. I have trouble doing that. That bothers me. I'd rather be frozen than already dead, So, but I mean, I'm just real big on animals, and I'm a true animal lover my whole life.
Going back to, people letting invasive species go, you said if it's just one, that it usually, it's not a huge problem. But here in Florida, for example, with these Burmese pythons that are really taking over the glades, don't these snakes lay like hundreds of eggs at a time?
No, they don't lay quite that many. I mean, they 30, 40. I mean, I don't see hundreds of eggs in one sitting. I've never seen that before. I mean, maybe they might have 100 eggs over the course of the year they might lay, but it's, I think that there's pros and cons to everything. Because there are a lot of animals out there, like alligators, that eat the Burmese pythons as well. So a lot of people don't realize that, alligators eat a lot of them. But they are bad for the smaller animals, the rodents, and marsupials, and obviously those numbers have plummeted. Do I wish that they were all removed out of the Everglades? Sure, absolutely. They're not native there. They have done damage to the Everglades and the wildlife there, and it's a shame that happened. But I think the best way. See, the one thing that's a little crazy though too about Florida is that you need licenses and permits to be able to remove one out of the wild, for a Burmese python, or a reticulated. I think a reticulated pythons are the ones. Which ones are the ones? There's two of them. Only one of them is in the Everglades.
It's definitely the Burmese python.
It's a Burmese, right? Yeah. So the Burmese pythons. It's a shame because a lot of them are taken out of the wild, and the ones that are licensed to take out by certain people, they kill them. It's like, well, what if you can find a zoo in the state of Washington or the state of Michigan that wants it for the zoo and will just take it, then just give it to them. I'm just not a person that just thinks you should just kill animals or kill animals because they're causing a problem with something else,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With these things, like you said, obviously killing them maybe isn't the answer. But I'm still curious on how these animals got this. Burmese pythons in particular, did it start off just a few pets that they let loose and it turned into this huge thing? Or was it more they were like brought here and this was intentional?
No, I mean, it was from what I've heard. I mean, I don't know anybody specifically that has done it, but just from, years ago, someone, told me, hey, there were people that released them, to start a population where they didn't want the snakes anymore. They didn't really know it wasn't, they weren't brought here to be released. It was, I believe, people that had them as pets and decided to get rid of them, where they got them as a baby and it got big and they're like, what the hell are we going to do with this? And they thought, oh, it'd be cool to go let it go in the Everglades, some teenagers or something like that. I don't know. But it's a shame. It really is.
Now, Al, I have a kind of a normie question. Someone like myself or just anyone in general, if they want to buy a tortoise, how much would that cost someone?
So it depends on the species. The tortoises can range anywhere from, $60, which is kind of the cheaper one, which is an African spur thigh tortoise. They also call them sulcatas, and they can get pricey. They can get into the a few $1,000s for certain species that aren't as oftenly bred. I know, in the state of Florida, let's say you were to buy a 12-inch female radiated tortoise. Well, that might be $4,000. And now the other thing too is some of the species. This is the one thing that's really mind-boggling to me, because they have this regulation where under the Endangered Species Act, they prevent species that aren't even native to the United States to not go across state lines through buying, selling, or trading. Now, the only way you can do it is you can give them away. You can give somebody something for Christmas or their birthday, and you can give it to them. You can send it from Texas to Arizona, but you can't buy, sell, or trade them. And it just doesn't make sense to me, because a lot of these animals that are protected under this are not even native to the United States. So what are they ultimately doing to help the species? They're actually preventing them from being massively bred in captivity, and then to where they can later be released in the wild. Now, years ago, the African spur thigh tortoise used to be really, really endangered, but now they're still considered endangered in the wild. But there are more that exist in the state of California that do in the wild in Africa. So there are probably hundreds of thousands, or if not millions of them in the United States alone, that have been bred, that all originated from 10 tortoises, and they've been circulating, and There's a lot of them. So many people have them. That's the most common tortoise that people have. And in the wild, they're still in danger. But guess what? They're starting to release them into the wild from captive bred populations. And they're going to, eventually, bring that population number up out in the wild. So we'll see what happens. But I think the number one thing is obviously habitat protection, as I said, but captive breeding goes a long way, and they need to make it easier for people instead of harder to definitely have access to certain species, especially the ones that aren't even native in the United States. They're protecting an Egyptian tortoise that obviously is not from here. And so people that have them in California and people that have them in Pennsylvania, they can't buy, sell, or trade that species, which is ridiculous. There's no reason to not allow it. So you want more people to have them. You want them to be bred more. But again, like I said, the more they breed, the more there are, the more the price comes down, and that actually helps the wild population as well.
And what are some other animals that you're not allowed to buy, sell, or trade?
Well, every species is different. So I'm pretty sure some of the big cats now, you had Carol Baskin lobby for that law. Yeah. So, which is ridiculous because there are thousands of cats owned in the United States through all the zoos and private collectors. And probably there's probably more of, there's more Bengal cats probably, and leopards in captivity than there are in the wild. So if you restrict people from continuing to breed them in captivity, the numbers are just going to go down because the ones in the wild aren't going up. So it's like, hello, it just doesn't make sense to me. So the other thing was you have a lot of these people that are just, they're a little bit misled by the circus industry that, the way they were treating animals. And there was you saw the show Tiger King. So some of these animals are being kept poorly by certain people, and that ruins it for everybody. When in reality, what they should do is just go and say, hey, we're going to do inspections. We're going to look and make sure you have the proper enclosures and setups for these animals. And if not, you're going to get a fine and have a 30-day grace period to turn things around. And if you don't, then we'll take your animal and then move it to a zoo or whatever. It's really easy to do. And it would just make everything so much easier. But you have one person ruin it, and all of a sudden they got to change a law and ban everything. It's just not helping the animals, I don't think.
Yeah, I've seen something before on social media that there's more tigers in Texas than there are in the wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even the United States, just Texas.
I believe it. And the thing is, the one thing is that a lot of the states out there, or governments or federal governments, don't have the funding to say, hey, we're going to do a captive breeding program for this species. So the best thing to do is have the private sector do it for free. I mean, you get why can't they sit there and say, hey, guess what? We want you to breed this species, and you're allowed to have them, but give us 10% of the offspring. And then you can give them 10% offspring, and then they can release them. But then you have some of these biologists that are like, oh, I know you can't do that. You're going to screw up the genetics and this and that of a wild population. But it's been done. It's been done, and it hasn't caused problems. As long as the animal is healthy and not carrying any kind of diseases, it's perfectly, and you can be examined by a veterinarian before they're released. It's just, it's a tough road, or a tough, hill to climb when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. But I'm just a huge animal lover, and I just want what's best for the animals and the population to go up on all the animals that are out there.
In your lifetime, do you envision yourself buying a big cat one day?
I wish. I see the thing is, I live in New Jersey, and I'm kind of stuck there a little bit with my baseball company and all the animals I have and the things I built for them. And then I have stuff that I have in New Jersey that, like, for instance, if I wanted, I really would love to have a clouded leopard. I really would love to have, some primates, maybe some monkeys, capuchin monkeys. Yeah, they're amazing. I would love to have them, but in New Jersey, that apparently, they're not something that they want you to have, and in Florida, a lot of people have them, and there's no problems.
Yeah.
So,
would it be easier to, maybe not a big cat, but have something like a zebra or something along like a kangaroo or something?
Yeah, you can have those. You can have those in New Jersey. You just got to get special permits, but you can have kinkajous, wallabies. I think kangaroo you can, but you can't do like you can't like travel around with it and do performances or, which is crazy. You should be allowed to bring them to schools to educate kids about, and hey, look, check out this kangaroo. You need to value wildlife. A lot of times people don't value wildlife because they lack the experience of being around it. So you really want to bring these animals to the kids and teach them to care for them. So as they get older, they'll think twice about throwing the trash out their window when they're driving past the swamp or something.
Yeah, totally. And now when I reached out to you, what really got my attention was that video of you holding the clouded leopard.
Oh yeah.
Growing up as a kid, I was really into animals, so I knew what a clouded leopard was, but to see like you holding it like that, like essentially bear hugging it.
Yeah.
I would imagine not, considering you're always around animals, but is there any part of you that gets a little nervy or freaked out by these big cats?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, being around a clouded leopard, they obviously have teeth that are over 2 inches long. And, I can't imagine something like that just biting into my neck, honestly. But they're captive bred. They've been raised by humans. They've been bottle fed as babies, and they just learn to trust humans. They don't know any better. They don't, so some of the bigger ones, they can be a little unpredictable if you don't spend as much time with them. So if you spend every day with your cat, whether it be a Jaguar, an adult, or whether it be a Bengal cat, if you spend every day with it, you guys form a bond, and that animal will trust you and love you, especially when you walk in there and you feed it all the time. But if you don't go in the enclosure much with it and interact with it at all, and you go a couple months not doing that, I guess, that it can rub the cat the wrong way. Maybe it might get mad at you. You never know. Sometimes it can be unpredictable, the larger ones, but it's very rare you ever hear of a problem, when it's done properly. Yeah. The clouded leopards they're not even that big. They're not that heavy. Like I could sit there and hold in my arms. In fact, I saw that same clouded leopard today, earlier this morning, Mr. Gibbers. But
I seen Mike Tyson talk about on Rogan's show that he obviously owned the tigers. He's known for that.
Yeah.
The difference between tigers and lions is that lions are a pack. They're like all one, but tiger, they choose one person.
Yeah.
Tyson said he couldn't bring his kids around the tiger because, if they touch Mike the wrong way, the tiger will kill the kids.
Yeah. They believe it or not, some of these cats even eat their own babies. So they'll give birth, and you pretty much got to get them out right away, and you got to bottle feed them and raise them up, because there's been instances I know with people that have zoos, and the mom gave birth, and they went out and it was eating it. So it's tough to be in that atmosphere to see that happen. I can't imagine.
Once the offspring grows a little bit, do you give it back to its mother?
No, you would keep it and probably just keep it separate, and eventually you could probably introduce them. But you don't want cats. You want them to be, when you have animals, you want them to be, if they're kept together, around the same size. If they're not around the same size, then you can have a more dominance thing. Like, for instance, chickens. If you take, if you take some new chicks that you raise up and they're about, a month old or month and a half old, let's say 6 to 8 weeks, and they're, halfway to adult size, and you go and you put them in with a group of adults that you already have, they're going to kill them. You have to put in full adult chickens with the other adults, And the best way to even introduce them is to give them lots of space, let them roam around the yard, and then over time they'll get accustomed to each other. But when you're putting them in small, close quarters and they're different sizes, you usually run into problems.
And Al, would you consider yourself a zookeeper?
No, I wouldn't. I wish like I had a zoo. Honestly, I would love to raise funds through a nonprofit of some sort and build a zoo. I might even do that one day. I don't know. Because I want the public, the general public, to be informed about these animals and how important they are and how they're misled. Like, for instance, poisonous snakes or venomous snakes. They're just, not going to go after you and harm you unless you irritate them. You step on a rattlesnake, it might try and bite you. But if you're, a couple feet from it, it's not gonna just randomly strike you.
And do you do private tours of your, I'll call it sanctuary?
Yeah. No, so I have some people that come over my house that I'm friends with, that I've been friends with for years, and family friends, and they come over, we hang out, but for the most part, I don't really bring people over my house or allow people that I don't really know well, because I've had issues in the past. When I was younger and I was a kid, I had somebody try and steal them out of my mom's backyard. They came at night and caught somebody on a motion camera coming in at night trying to steal the turtles out of a big pen. And, since that point, I'm like, that's it. I'm not, letting people over my house anymore. I got fence, I got more cameras. I actually got motion sensor alarms where it shoots beams across the enclosure. So if two beams are broken from somebody walking past, it sets an alarm off in my house, and then I come running out. So that's what it led to. Because you have these animals that people are stealing, and there's been issues down here in Florida, and they caught them. They ended up catching the people, but it's a shame that we have to live like that. So it's hard for me to bring people over my house. I was married, now I'm divorced. So when I was married, my ex-wife didn't really want anybody over the house either, because you just don't know. You just don't know people.
Yeah.
So hopefully one day I can buy land and actually have something open to people, open to the public. That would be a phenomenal dream.
And Al, I'm just noticing your shirt. What are you wearing?
Okay, so the shirt says U.S. Ark. The U.S. I don't know, can you see it? So U.S. Ark there, that's a company that fights animal legislation. So they have a group of attorneys, and they go and they fight some of the lawmakers, or they fight the lobbyists. Really, they fight the lobbyists that are trying to push for certain bills to get passed. So they go in and they make certain points. They argue certain points to try and prevent some of these laws from passing, because they're just more and more laws just keep getting passed and cracking down on the animal industry. And you're going to start seeing, if it gets out of hand, pet stores are going to go out of business, and then, it's basically going to be, there's been legislation I've seen in the past that you couldn't own anything besides a dog or a cat, which was ridiculous, And you have the Humane Society, companies like that are, lobbying for that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different organizations out there that lobby for these real strict laws, and it's not good for the animals. And I know nobody wants to see animals locked up in cages. I get that. I don't want to see animals locked up in cages. So what we do is we try and create what we call an enclosure. So we have an enclosure that's just actually, walls where it can be kept in a large enough space where, it feels comfortable. The number one thing is just that the animals are happy. If the animals are happy, then they'll reproduce for you.
Yeah, right.
So
makes sense.
Right. So so that's what it comes down to is, and all these animals, almost all of the animals that you see in the industry have been bred by breeders. So they don't even know what it's like to be in the wild. In fact, if you took them and let them go, they wouldn't even, sometimes they wouldn't survive.
No, and it's great you're bringing awareness to it too. Obviously, your social media account is kind of blown up here the last year. So how's that been since?
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I enjoy doing the videos and reels for people. I try and sometimes be a little amusing or funny. Sometimes I'll say some, like I just did one the other day with we were coming out of a trail and we walked down the trail and then we were walking out and we had to go to our vehicle and there was an alligator in the pathway right there in front of us and we couldn't go past with the alligator sitting there. And there was a mom with a stroller and a baby behind me. So she was scared to death of it, with being baby. She had no idea that it was going to be up on the path. So I had to go up and I had to, tap it on the tail and scoot it into the water. So everybody could walk by. But I mean, I do reels like that. I did like a Ace Ventura impression. So sometimes I add a little humor to it. I'm not sure if you guys seen those movies. Yeah, his movies are hilarious. And I try to be factual too with some of the stuff. I bring awareness to certain species sometimes and where they're from, what's hurting them in the wild, what needs to be done, and just things that people might not know generically. So,
no, definitely, especially like here on our show now, you're listing the turtles and where exactly they're from and how much they go for. It is extremely knowledgeable. But with your comment you just made about removing the alligator in the path,
yeah,
I want to finish our show here with a few rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Rapid fire question I have for you is: what is the difference between a crocodile and an alligator?
Well, you'll see it in the head. You can see it in the face.
Yeah, this is now.
Yes, exactly. So you're gonna get like wider on the alligator and a little bit more narrower on the crocodile.
And crocodiles are generally more aggressive too, right?
Well, crocodiles have been known to get larger, especially looking at some of the ones in Africa. The Nile crocodile, yeah, they do get larger, so they obviously eat a lot bigger food items. So I mean, someone like a human might be more on their plate versus a small deer or raccoon like an alligator. But I mean, there are some big alligators out there. They get over 12 feet long. And the males, I think, are the ones that get real big.
Okay. Next question. Are lemurs more closely related to monkeys or raccoons and coatis?
That's a question I can't answer for sure. But if I were to guess, I don't know if you know the answer, but if I were to guess, I'd probably say monkeys. Probably say primate.
I'd say that too.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of. Go ahead.
Sorry, what was that? Go ahead, Al.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, they flit around the trees and they live a lot like monkeys do, right?
Yeah, that's a good argument. Are there any animals that you won't go around that just totally give you the heebie-jeebies?
I'm not big into spiders.
That's fair.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, let's all take a moment and pray and thank God that spiders can't fly. Really, I mean, they can create webs and they can fly out in the ocean with all that strong wind and end up on an island somewhere. Fine. There's been reports of that happening, but just them building large webs and the webs just carrying them from several miles. But at the end of the day, spiders outside, it's like, hey, how you doing? Inside, it's like, die. You don't want the spider in your house because you don't know what it's going to be when you're sleeping. And the worst is when you're driving and you see one like in the roof of your car, and then you're like, all of a sudden you look back and it's gone, and you're like, where the hell did it go?
That's so funny. Al, where's the best exotic animal park in the United States?
Oh, it depends. I mean, you have different places you can go and see and experience different things. You can go to big public zoos like the San Diego Zoo or the Miami Zoo, and there's all kinds of animals, but you can't get too close to them. You see the tiger, there's a huge canal coming by, there's a big wall, there's, a railing, and it's sitting back, 40, 50 feet from you. And they have a lot more animals. And then you have some of the smaller private zoos. Some of them, like I said, my friend's zoo, Zoological Wildlife Foundation, you can pay, because it's they got to stay in business, they got to feed the animals. You can pay them to engage with them and spend time and see what it's like to really, be up and close with a monkey, a capuchin monkey or a sloth, and something obviously most people don't get the opportunity to do, but it really just depends on what you're looking to do. Then there's the safaris you can drive your cars through, and an ostrich will come up and stick its head right through the window, which I think is cool. But there's I can't really say there is one specific one. Everyone, and there's so many different zoos that specialize in different species. So there'll be zoos that specialize in, turtles, tortoises, reptiles, and whatever, more so than they do, marsupials or mammals. And then you have other zoos that specialize. They have more aquarium-based stuff. They do a lot more, tanks and sharks and different things like that. So it just depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And you have the aquariums, like, the Houston Aquarium. There's every place you go has different, focus points on types of animals.
Totally. And what is the most dangerous animal that you own?
I don't have animals that are dangerous. The animals that I have, I have a Argus monitor. It's pretty strong. I mean, it can really rip your finger. I mean, rhino iguanas it's not something you want to get bit by. I mean, it'll take
Don't you have the poison dart frogs?
Yeah, so they are. I do have poison dart frogs, but the thing is, they're only poisonous in the wild based on their diet. So in captivity, because you feed them a different diet, they don't carry that poison. So they're really not. They're not. So even if a frog was captured in, Costa Rica, a poison dart frog brought to the United States and kept in an aquarium for like 2 months. After 2 months goes by, that frog that was poisonous 2 months ago is not poisonous anymore because the diet has changed. So it was the diet in the wild that actually made those frogs poisonous.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of people that's something that a lot of people don't know. As soon as they hear the word poisonous, the word poisonous means if you bite it, you die, I believe. And then venomous is if it bites you, you can die. So some people think also poisonous and venomous are the exact same, which you can look at it that way, but it's not really the case, I don't think.
I'm guilty of being some people because
it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I learn stuff every day.
Right.
I learn stuff every day. I mean, if we didn't, then we would just be closed-minded and not get anywhere. So
that's why we love to talk to people like you on our show. Al, last question. What is your loving animal you have?
Besides my dog, obviously a dog's a man's best friend. My favorite animal that I have, I mean, I got a tortoise, an Aldabra tortoise. It's about 22 inches or so. It has got a personality on it. There's some turtles and tortoises that I've had for a long time, and I've raised them up from babies, and they'll come running up and eat a banana right out of my hand. It's really it's very peaceful to just sit outside in my backyard and be around the tortoises and the turtles and just have them come up and just eat out of your hands. I mean, I would probably say an Aldabra tortoise that I have is one of my favorite animals, and also Rufus, my male Argus monitor, which I let run around my house sometimes. So I'm not sure if you saw those videos, but yeah, I caught him in a litter box one time. I don't know what he was doing there, but I hope that he was learning how to use it because, you don't want him going to the bathroom anywhere in the house. But yeah, the Argus monitor, and he's Rufus, the Argus monitor, and then Maximus, the rhino iguana. I let him come in the house and I'll be doing emails and stuff, and they'll just be chilling on the couch with me or whatever.
That's too good. Al, thank you, dude, for coming on our show.
Sure.
Love learning about all these different types of not only reptiles but animals in general.
Yeah.
Kind of refreshing my memory from when I was a kid. So appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the rest of your time in Florida here, and hopefully one of these days we're able to see all of your prized possessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if you're ever in New Jersey, which I mean, New Jersey's not really a great state to go and see, unless it's the summertime. The summer's nice, you know, the shore there in the Atlantic City. There's a lot of things to do, but a lot of people don't travel to New York to New Jersey for vacation. But if you're ever in that area, let me know. You're more welcome to stop by, and see the animals that I do have. So I'm really excited to see how my peacocks, my peacocks are now about a year old, and I got 2 males and 2 females. So I'm anxious to see them breed and anxious to see the males spread their tails out and just, see how they interact with my chickens in the backyard. Cause the backyard I have is good size. I got a good fence. So hopefully they stay on the property, and I'll have it set up so they can go and roost up in the enclosure up on the, I got some bamboo rods that go across so they can roost up there at night and escape any of the predators. So, but as long as they go back in there every night. So I'm anxious to see how that goes. I'm pretty much done building ponds and stuff on my property. I got probably about 15 ponds. And yeah, I'll tell you, if you were to look at a video of my backyard there's a YouTuber named Camp Kennan, and Camp Kennan is right down here in Jupiter, and he does a lot of videos, and he's been to my house and did a whole video of my backyard, and that was done. I think he posted the video maybe late August, early September. So if you want to check that out, he takes you around. It's about a 25-minute video. But I got snakes too that I keep there in the backyard in a large enclosure that goes down 2 feet, 2.5 feet in the ground, and it keeps them from escaping, so they can't dig out. But they hibernate and they live there naturally. So that's another project I got going. And last year was the first year I hatched northern pine snakes, and this year I'm looking forward to seeing what else hatches. So there's a lot of projects that are going on. So see what happens.
No, it's cool to see and watch on social media. Where can our listeners find your YouTube, Instagram, everything?
So basically, if you just go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, if you go on YouTube, type in Reptastic Adventures, and it should pop up, and you'll see, a lot of different, videos and reels and stuff that I've done, and hopefully that continues to grow. I got a dog here that's now deciding to speak up.
Perfect ended on an animal here. Alan, thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Anytime you wanted me to come back, let me know.